Hello, Martha. Many, many
Hello, Susan.
congratulations on being the Impresario of the Year. You are first woman to be so named. We have only two impresarios so far. One of them is you. The other one was Michael Kaiser many years ago when he was at the Kennedy Center. This designation to you is because of all that you have accomplished in San Diego, which is pretty amazing. And you've been there 11 years. You have created one new venue and resuscitated another one to the tune of $125 million. You have hired a new music director. You have basically put the orchestra on the map as one of the three most important in the state of California. I think from having observed you, been lucky enough to observe you in action a couple of years ago when you were first opening the Rady Shell, I think one of your great uh, attributes, accomplishments actually, is the ability to collaborate with funders and city planners and government people and people under you and people over you. Because they say, there are two kinds of managers, the ones that manage well up and the ones who manage well down. And you seem to be sort of perfectly in the middle.
Well, thank you. And thank you first for this incredible honor. I am truly touched. Um, and also this is such a collaborative role. And it's important that we pay homage to the people who have made it possible, from every worker on site in construction and everyone who cares for the details of running the Rady Shell Jacobs Park or Jacobs Music Center, uh, to the artists that appear there and the donors that really made it possible. It is a collaborative process from the very beginning.
Right. But it's also a testament to you that you've been able to draw in so many different pieces of the puzzle. Yeah.
Yes, that was the fun part. That
Okay.
was the fun part. Almost every day, not every day, but almost every day.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we have a unique partnership when talking about the Rady Shell Jacobs Park, because that was a partnership and continues to be a partnership with the Port of San Diego. The tidelands that run along the coast of the state of California are their own entity. They don't actually belong to the city of San Diego or Los Angeles or San Francisco. And so the collaboration and the work we did leading up to groundbreaking was extensive and was something I'd never experienced before. I had very good help from people who did have a tremendous experience in navigating the various details, which had everything to do with environmental impact. That was a huge part of
Huh.
the pre-work for the Rady Shell Jacobs Park, to assuring that we were going to be good citizens and good partners with the Port of San Diego. At the park, there was a running track around the edge, so you could run by the bay, which was beautiful. And there was some exercise equipment there, but otherwise it was some grass and a lot of dirt most of the year, just because of the need to water grass in that kind of environment. So it was not a leafy, beautiful park. But it was sitting in the middle of and surrounded by water, which makes it such a beautiful site.
Right. Right.
And the San Diego Symphony leased that land in a temporary occupancy permit for the summer, for roughly 10 weeks every summer. And we had our summer pops on site with a temporary stage that we constructed every year, and bleachers and a lot of porta potties. There was no plumbing on that piece of land.
Yeah.
And so people loved it. They loved coming there. They brought picnics. They enjoyed the summer pops. We did 3 concerts a week, and that was kind of legend. And when I came to interview for this role, the board said, we have certain objectives that we're looking for the new CEO to bring to make happen here. And the first was a permanent site on the site of the summer pops, so a permanent venue. They believed, of course, that this could be more year-round than just 10 weeks in the summer, and that's of course true. Today in San Diego, it's going to be 83 degrees, and it's the 29th of October. So we've had concerts really well into, we have our holiday concerts out there in December, and then really kick back up again in, say, March. So it's only quiet out there about 3 months of the year.
And the thing that's really amazing about it is that it's still in a park. I mean, I remember when I first saw it that it's part of a huge park that people can come and eat or play or whatever they want to do. And then if they want to go sit somewhere and listen, they can, or if they'd rather just hear the music. Um, I find that kind of remarkable because it does really put the orchestra in the right smack in the middle of life in in downtown San Diego. Or
Absolutely. The park, we have closed concerts. We have ticketed events only 15% of the time. The remaining 85%, it is open to the public. The gates are open and it opens at 6 in the morning and closes at 10 at night. But it is a public park. That means that when the orchestra is rehearsing, people can come and sit on the lawn, and they do. They bring their children, they bring a lunch. When the orchestra's in residence, they have kind of a group of followers that come out during the day and listen to rehearsals for free, which I so fervently believe is a great asset and great benefit. To see art being made, to see what goes into it, and to have access to it is one of the things I'm proudest, really, of the whole accomplishment of building the Rady Shell at Jacobs Park.
wow.
And when, for instance, the orchestra is rehearsing a film and they have a dress rehearsal and run the film, there could be as many as 1,000 people that come and are there. And one might argue that that's revenue that we're not capturing, but I look at it in a slightly different way. I think that we want people to feel they belong there and that the Rady Shell at Jacobs Park belongs to them. It belongs to the community. And that venue lends itself to that feeling. We host a number of other events in the year. We have a kickoff party when we announce the season. Again, families come and bring picnics, sit on the lawn, and we kind of give them a tasting of what they can anticipate in the summer with live music and some videos of artists that are coming. And it's just a great, we have food vendors open, and it's just a great feeling to be together. And knowing that the San Diego Symphony is the convener, is at the heart of it.
That's really something.
Yeah.
Quite an accomplishment. So you mentioned that when you were first interviewing for the job, you were at the time you were still in Chicago as most important artistic person next to Riccardo Muti at the time. What else did the board say to you in terms of, what were your mandates?
Well, in addition to the outdoor venue, they wanted me to look at Jacobs Music Center and see if there could be improvements in the acoustics. And that came second because the process for getting the summer site up and going was a little more complicated and was going to take more time. So we performed at Jacobs Music Center all of those early years. And in the process, we did look at what improvements could be made. And once the Rady Shell was well on its way in terms of construction, we had already engaged the architect and the acoustician for Jacobs Music Center. And we actually started construction there before we opened the Radio Shell at Jacobs Park.
Right.
COVID was part of that, because why would we have since the hall was closed, we kind of put our foot on the gas and went for it. But so that was the second big project. And also the board knew that Yahya Ling was near retirement from the orchestra, and they knew we were going to be a music director search. So based on my background, I think they thought that I was, that was a good calling card, that I had worked with a number of musicians for my 35 years at the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and worked with soloists and, of course, with conductors. And that music director search was in my wheelhouse. I don't think they knew anything about my capabilities of building a outdoor site and renovating an indoor one, but I think they thought I probably could do the latter. And then just generally looking at the finances of the orchestra and planning a future for this orchestra. One of the challenges of San Diego is that they had interruptions in their business for over the past year, and they were at a seminal point in their development. I would not be here were it not for Irwin and Joan Jacobs. They were visionaries and passionate about the arts and supported many arts organizations, but importantly, they are the ones that made it possible for the San Diego Symphony to survive with their seminal gift in the early 2000 and 2002. And
Well,
it's
and
still,
what
I
was
think it's the largest gift ever.
and how much was it?
$120 million. I don't think that when we had those early meetings that they imagined, nor did I, that it would be quite as monumental as it has been. There was a time when we thought the Radio Shell at Jacobs Park was going to be a simple structure that could be built in 2 weeks and was very light on the environment. And it is anything, I mean, it is light on the environment. That's the good part, but it is, a structure that stands, will be there for the long run.
Oh,
And,
right.
it cost in the end just north of $90 million. And at one point, I remember when it was 25 and I remember when it was 45. So, but we really went for what was going to have impact in San Diego. And
Right.
it has.
Yeah.
And now we look back and some people have come, from other cities to look at it and say, you did all that for $85 million, $90 million. And I look at it that way now. It seems like we were greatly fortunate to be able to create what we did.
I just want to make sure that we talk a little bit about Raphael.
Yes, of course.
And were you familiar with him at all when you arrived at the orchestra? When you started your search, did you know him? Did you know of him?
So when I arrived here and started thinking about music director candidates, of course, I knew a number of conductors, and there were a lot of them that I hadn't had the opportunity to know in Chicago. It was a mix. In the end, we had, I think, 21 conductors over a 3-year period that came and conducted the orchestra, and they were exceptional. I think one interesting thing about San Diego is that prior to my arrival, they played somewhere between 13 and 14, what I would call subscription weeks, symphonic weeks a year.
Uh-huh.
And then they play for the opera. At one point, there were 5 operas a year. There's 3 now. And they did some other kind of indoor pops as well as the summer weeks. Now they play 20, what we call masterworks
Wow.
weeks a year, in part because of the diminution of the opera, in part because we've just kind of repurposed services. But they didn't really have a long list of guest conductors that they'd worked with. Raphael Payari was on my radar early, and I had not met him. I had not worked with him. I didn't know him, but I got to know him over time and touched base with him before he even came here in that 2018 period.
And you also knew his wife, did you not?
Yes, of course. I knew Elisa Weilerstein very well.
Oh.
And she came to as a soloist that was booked before I arrived. She came as a soloist, and I said, I'm trying to get your husband to come here and conduct. She said, I know, and I told him he should. I'm encouraging it. I said, well, keep encouraging it because we really do want to have him meet the orchestra. So she was there for that first concert that he conducted, and she was sitting uh, just down the row from me. And after the Berlioz Overture, I leaned forward and we looked at each other and smiled. And then we walked out, and I put my arm around her and said, we're going to have a conversation, don't you? She said, yes, I know. It was that obvious. It was that obvious. Raphael finished his concert here on Sunday, and we flew to Chicago on Thursday and heard his concert, and then met with him and offered him the job. We were
So
sure.
when you talk about the Berlioz was the very first piece that he led the San Diego Symphony in. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you knew then, or
Oh,
you
yeah.
and Alicia knew then. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I'd been in rehearsals all week, so I saw the work he was doing.
Right,
But
right.
the orchestra just responded. And it was exciting. It was thrilling. And
That's so
yeah,
great. That's so
it was
great.
great.
About how much of the orchestra has changed since your arrival?
I think the number is, I think Raphael has appointed already 26 new players
Wow.
in his, um, what, 8, 9 years of being
Wow.
here.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. And especially since we couldn't even have auditions for really 2 of those years.
One of the aspects of your uh, collaboration in San Diego that has actually helped was when COVID shut things down, Raphael was in San Diego and
He
he
was.
couldn't go home even if he wanted to. So,
Well, it actually, so when we shut down in March of 2020, right? March of 2020.
2020, yeah.
Uh, after, as it looked like they were closing the borders, right? Rafael, of course, was at that time a Venezuelan citizen. Now he's a US citizen. Uh,
Thank
and
God.
as they were closing the borders, I called them. They were in Berlin. They had a home or an apartment in Berlin and with their small daughter. And I said, if you're going to conduct concerts in May, you know, 2, 3 months down the road, you need to get on a plane now because you might not be able to get into the country. And they booked their flights and traveled the next day and came to San Diego because they owned a home here, which was so smart. I mean, they could be outdoors with each other, and they were with us the whole pandemic, and we were in our own bubble. Their home is a mile and a half from ours, and we would have dinner outside in the canyon and talk every night. So he was very much present. And that's when the shell was being built. So
Right.
the other great thing is earlier than many, we were able to have the orchestra distanced on the shell stage outdoors. So Raphael was working with them regularly and increasing the size of the orchestra. So we were, early was Bach and Vivaldi and, strings that could wear masks and no winds. But eventually he just progressed through repertoire, got bigger and bigger. If a music director said, I would like to work with the orchestra in repertoire without audiences for 6 months, everybody would say, yeah, that's never going to happen. But of course, that is what could happen at that time and had to happen.
First of all, happy 4th of July. During this time, we should be actually be starting to open the shell. Unfortunately, this summer we cannot do it, but it's going to be postponed after the next one. We are going to actually have a little simple gift for you. This was a piece that we were going to play this summer, but now we're going to do it in a different way with the wonderful musician of your San Diego Symphony, the brass player. So I hope you enjoy.
I think the other aspect of what we're doing is that an orchestra, obviously made up of, in our case, 82 players and their families and that live in this city, is an important organism in the city, and it can affect and bring about positive change. And I think back to some of my colleagues in orchestras. I think back to Ann Parsons in Detroit and how the Detroit Symphony worked with the city to improve the area around their concert hall. We see ourselves as a catalyst for improving downtown San Diego, where a number of people live, and yet it doesn't have a lot of commercial. It has restaurants, but not commercial, not shops. It isn't a place that people necessarily go to. And we want to make sure we're bringing people downtown. And we have 2 venues for them to attend. And I think that's really an important part of our existence there. And so, yes, working closely with the city and the mayor and supporting those efforts, and also bringing to their attention that they can utilize our presence to make things better. I think that's really important. I think we're citizens of our cities, and we need to be catalysts for change.
I want to wrap up here, but I 2 things come to mind. One is when we talk about how you were able to take advantage of the COVID shutdown, and how Raphael and his family were here. That's because you called them. It's not because it happened, accidentally. That's because you called them. And that phone call was a huge turning point. Huge.
Yeah.
So kudos to you. And
Thank you.
it's a perfect example of why you have been given this award, and how you have managed to turn California's oldest orchestra into one of the 3 most important ones in the state. And that's quite an accomplishment. So congratulations.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you. Really, I'm honored.